Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. The NHS is under threat in Scotland. Existential threat it may be, because it may no longer be free at the point of service. It may become payable, pay-as-you-go NHS. For 17 years, the SNP have lauded themselves and said the NHS is safe in their hands and that it will always be free. And it seems now that that promise will be broken because of 17 years of massive underinvestment in this organisation. Michelle Thomson comes out and starts telling people the bad news, that due to the mismanagement of the economy, due to the complete lack of humanitarianism within the party, who'd rather spend money on independence brochures than the NHS, people are now going to have to start paying. No more free NHS. Well done, all you SNP voters. You've managed to completely destroy the one thing that people absolutely desperately need. Keep going. Let's have a look at this to see why Michelle Thomson is the bearer of such bad news yet again. Here goes. So, free NHS under threat from the SNP, as an MSP suggests that Scots may have to pay for services. And when they start saying may have to pay, that is them gaslighting, meaning that their plans are you're going to pay. But they can't come out right and say, oh, you're going to pay. They have to make it somebody else's fault. They go, oh, you may have to pay at some point in the future, because Westminster or something. And then when they have to bring it in, which they know they're going to have to do, it'll always be someone else's fault. But it isn't Westminster wasting all that money on independence. It isn't Westminster spending £8 million a month on spin doctors. How about fewer spin doctors and more real doctors? Nationalist MSP Michelle Thomson claimed on BBC Debate Night that Scots should be willing to pay for some health treatments, as Scottish Labour said that this shows that a free NHS is not safe under the Scottish Government. But surely the NHS, their big thing was the NHS is free at point, everyone's free medical care, free healthcare. That was the SNP's big selling point. And because they've so badly mismanaged everything, now they're going to say Scots will be willing to pay. Maybe Scots aren't willing to pay. Maybe, Michelle Thomson, Scots are saying, you promised free. And now you're saying we've got to pay. You pay. Stop spending money on shit. Stop spending it on glossy brochures. Stop spending it on pretendy embassies. Put all that money back and put it in the NHS and pay for the NHS like you promised. Oh no, they're not going to do that. No. While your child is lying in a hospital room dying of leukemia, there's friends and chums and cousins and brothers and sisters of people who work as officials or as MSPs, quaffing the champagne in those foreign embassies and all putting it all down to the taxpayer. Very nice. Can't afford to save the life of your child, but at least, Rodney's having a good time in, China or wherever the next one's opening. Anyway, the SNP have been accused of putting a free NHS under threat after senior MSPs suggested that Scots could pay for some services in the future. The Nationalists have often hit out at the Tory government for attempting to quietly privatise the health service in England, and now they are going to be the first people to privatise it in Scotland. Now, I will take no health advice from Michelle Thomson, a woman who is massively overweight and does not have what one call a healthy lifestyle. But for her, it doesn't matter because she doesn't care about the NHS. She's got private health insurance, so hey, whatever. Senior MP Dr. Philippa Whitford suggested last year, as she said this, suggested this last year. She said, while the NHS in England has faced creeping privatisation and fragmentation, even though it hasn't, she's saying it, but it hasn't, NHS Scotland remains a unified public service under the SNP. Now, in England, the only thing you pay for when you go is dentistry, because everything else is free. You go to your GP, and he will just recommend you go to the consultant. Now, of course, you may have a very long wait, and that's fine. And that's what happens in socialised healthcare. But you will be seen. You are not charged. It's only dentistry that you pay for. Everything else is free. Weird, isn't it? I think you pay actually. I think you pay £10 for an eye test or something like that. £12 for an eye test. I think an eye test is the same price as a prescription. But that's fine, and I don't mind prescription fees because you're paying £10. It might only be a couple of pounds worth of prescription, but somebody down the road may need very, very expensive medicine, and everyone chipping in that £10 or £11.95, whatever it is at the moment, pays for somebody else to get it. But one day it could be you or your wife or your son or whatever, and you're going to be grateful for that. So I don't have a problem with that. Also, it means that nobody is left behind. You've got enough funding in there to help fund it. If, for example, in Scotland you put a £10 prescription fee, think about who's paying. The elderly aren't paying. The children aren't paying. Those on benefits aren't paying. It's only the workers that are paying. It's only the ones who can afford to pay that are paying. So fine, have a £10 prescription fee. What's wrong with that? But they need to be different. They need to go everybody's free, and everybody's free is bankrupting the NHS in Scotland. But of course, very stupid people like Michelle Thomson won't change their minds. She can't, because to change their minds shows they were wrong. Well, boy, are they wrong now, because now the NHS in Scotland is going to be a pay-for service. Her Hollywood colleague Michelle Thomson has come under fire after claiming that some Scots should be willing to pay for free healthcare. No, they shouldn't be willing to pay. That's the wrong thing. They voted for free healthcare. They voted you in for free healthcare. They want free healthcare. If you say they should not be willing to pay, but we're going to make them pay, that's an entirely different thing. She said during a discussion on the future of the NHS on the BBC, Scotland's debate night, she said that arguably there are some things that those of us who are able to do so might be willing to pay for. No, forced to pay for. This has been blasted by Scottish Labour, who have called on the Scottish Government's Health Secretary Neil Gray to pledge that patients won't be forced to pay for more NHS services after Ms Thomson sparked alarm with her comments. The party branded the proposals jaw-dropped as they warned a free health service was now at risk under the Nationalists. So the Nationalists are going reneging on their promise. Hey, are we all surprised? Who's surprised? Hands up if you're surprised. I'm not surprised. The Scottish Labour health spokesman Jackie Bailey said our NHS has fallen into chaos as a result of the SNP's disastrous stewardship. But instead of dwelling on this crisis, the SNP is now threatening to make Scots pay for life-saving care. The Health Secretary must distance himself from these jaw-dropping comments and rule out new NHS charges. Absolutely, they must. If you are elected on the one mandate of free NHS care, and then all of a sudden say, "Oh, I'm sure you'll be willing to pay," you've got that completely wrong. If you want to say, "Well, we're screwed up so badly, we're going to have to start charging people," that's an entirely different matter. And it doesn't matter whether people are willing to pay or not. You have to force them to pay, but you have to call it what it is. We are forcing you to pay because we have screwed the pooch so badly. She said more and more people are already being forced to pay for private healthcare because of record waiting lists, and now the threat of charges is looming. It's clear that the founding principles of our NHS are at risk under the SNP. Scottish Labour is committed, blah, 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 blah. She's doing a Scottish Labour thing, and that's fine. This is an interesting thing, and I'm not going to dwell on it, but it's just something I've read, and I've just seen it, and I think it's quite interesting. The number of Scots being forced to turn to private healthcare has risen sharply in recent years as patients are being told that they must wait years for routine operations. In 2022, 40% of all hip and knee operations in Scotland took place in the independent sector, with 1,745 rounds of chemotherapy also paid for privately. Because people don't want to die. Cancer care in Scotland is worse than some third world countries, and that is 17 years of SNP mismanagement. People dying for independence. And I think it would be only right and proper that when an SNP voter goes to hospital and is told, "No, I'm afraid we cannot give you this treatment," that they then reflect on the choices they make. And it's a sad thing, isn't it? Granny can't get her hip, but that's okay. There's some people drinking champagne in a little pretendy embassy and laughing at you. But you're willing to pay for that. Coming up. Michelle Thomson, even her face annoys me. You know, her face like a well-scalped arse, but she's always hanging on. She's never happy. She's always got a scowl on it, hasn't she? It's as though life has pushed her down so much. She shouldn't. The amount of money she's earning, she'd be well happy. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. I will speak to you later. Bye.